Welcome back to Super Recaps. Today I will recap an action and crime film from 2010 called Henry's Crime. The film starts by showing us the protagonist of the movie, Henry. Henry is a toll collector, and currently, he is on an night shift. He sits in the ticketing booth with a blank face, and we don't see him express any emotions at all as he does his job. After his shift is over, he goes back home and eats breakfast with his wife, Debbie. They make some small talk, and even when talking to his wife, Henry has the same blank look on his face. His wife suddenly asks him if he loves, to which Henry replies with, "Yes, of course, I do." But he says this without any emotion. They then start a discussion about children. Debbie wants children, and even though Henry doesn't have a problem with children, he just doesn't want his own. In the next moment, the doorbell rings. It turns out to be Eddie, who is Henry's old friend. Along with Eddie, there is a guy called Joe, who is busy vomiting on the ground. They bring the sick guy to Henry's house, and while Henry's wife takes care of Joe, Eddie informs Henry that they were going to play a baseball match, but Joe has fallen sick and can't play anymore. So Eddie wants Henry to play with them instead. Henry agrees, but what he doesn't know is that Eddie has a different plan. During the drive, Eddie tells him to stop by the nearest bank so that he can withdraw some cash. Henry doesn't question him. There are two other men with them, and they also get off with Eddie once they reach the bank. And this is when Henry notices that the car has been wired, which means it's a stolen car. It's revealed that Eddie and the other two are not planning to play baseball. They are in fact planning to rob this bank. However, meanwhile, Henry is still confused about what's going on. The security guard notices him and confronts him with a gun. Poor Henry gets framed for the whole crime, and they take him to the interrogation room to question him about his subordinates. But for some reason, Henry stays silent. The scene then shifts to Henry's court hearing, and the judge sentences Henry to 3 years in prison. Henry doesn't question anything and doesn't even express any sort of emotion. He simply accepts whatever is happening to him and goes to jail. He will be sharing the jail cell with an old man who introduces himself as Max Kahn. They have a friendly conversation and talk about why they are in prison. Max is 50 years old, and he is quite comfortable in jail as he has been confined here for a long time. They become fast friends, and Max tells him all about the jail rules and even tells him about the different types of prisoners here. Later on, while having dinner, Max says that the real crime is not chasing your dreams, and he then proceeds to ask Henry what his dream is. Henry replies that he has never had a dream, which confuses Max, as he can't imagine a life without dreams. He tells Henry that if he wants to achieve anything in life, he will need to have a dream first. 6 months have passed, and Debbie has finally come to visit Henry. Their conversation is very awkward as usual, and Debbie reveals that she is only here to tell him that she is planning to marry Joe. After this revelation, Henry simply smiles at Debbie and congratulates. The scene then moves to 1 year later. Henry has become well accustomed to prison, and Max is currently shaving the other prisoner. But for an unknown reason, Henry refuses to shave, and it is now time for Henry to be released from jail. He doesn't exactly seem happy about it though, but he says goodbye to Max and leaves. Once he is out, he is confused about where to go and eventually decides to go to his old house where Debbie lived. When he arrives there, Joe opens the door and casually greets him. He treats Henry like a guest even though this used to be Henry's house and Debbie used to be Henry's wife. Debbie then shows up and offers Henry a beer, and Henry is surprised to see that Debbie is even pregnant now. Before Henry leaves, Joe thanks Henry for not revealing his name to the cops, but Henry straight up tells him that he just didn't know what Joe's name was. Henry then leaves. He then remembers what Max once said: if you do the time, you might as well commit the crime. So Henry decides to go to the bank, and as he walks toward it, he gets hit by a car. Julia Vanover comes out of the car. She is a popular actress who regularly stars in many ads, and she is currently performing a play at their local theater. Right now, she scolds Henry for standing in the middle of the road and also offers to buy him coffee to make up for hitting him. The security guard who caught Henry during the robbery notices the whole scene and comes to help them. He drops Henry to the nearby cafe with Julia, and it's apparent that the security guard, Frank, has recognized Henry from the robbery, but he leaves without saying anything. Henry and Julie get their coffee, and Henry remembers Julie from one of her ads. Soon, Julie leaves as she has to go to rehearsal, and Henry heads to the bathroom. This is when he sees an old newspaper on the wall. The article in the paper states that once there used to be a secret passage that connected the local theater to the bank. This gives Henry an idea, and he believes this is the perfect opportunity to rob the bank. But for that, he will need Max's help. So he first visits Max in prison and tells him that he has finally found his dream, which is to rob the bank. Max is quite baffled, but Henry tries to convince him to file for his overdue parole so that he can be released from prison and help Henry with his dream. Max refuses at first, but Henry convinces him by asking him if he wants to spend the rest of his life rotting in prison. Finally, Max agrees and files for parole. Upon his release, Max and Henry get a flat together. To start their planning, they first visit the cafe so that Max can look at the article. This is when Max realizes that the map given in the article is more than 80 years old, and the bank structure has probably changed by now, so they will need to go check out the bank first. The two head to the bank, and Max uses his con man skills to fool the employee into revealing that the tunnel still exists in the bank. After that, they decide to visit the theater to find the tunnel there. Henry takes Max to meet Julie, and this time Max pretends to be an old actor from 30 years ago. They manage to convince Julie to give them a tour of the theater. Then Max meets the manager of the theater and questions him about the tunnel. The manager informs him that the tunnel has been sealed off and that it's in the dressing room of one of their actors called La Paquette. Meanwhile, Henry asks Julie on a date, and they decide to go to a Chinese restaurant. This is the start of Henry's new romantic relation. It seems that Julie has managed to melt Henry's cold heart, and they end up sleeping together. The next day, Max has come up with a plan. He says that they will need access to the dressing room, and to do that, he will convince one of the actors to quit the play, and then Henry will take that actor's place. Henry is hesitant, but Max tells him that he has natural talent. So now it's time to audition. The director is an angry man who always lectures Julie and finds faults with her acting, but when he sees Henry's performance, he is very happy and hires Henry on the spot. Max and Henry now have access to the dressing room, and they begin to smash the wall that's covering the tunnel. When they break the wall, they see that the tunnel is filled with sand, and they will need to start digging if they want to reach the bank. To do that, they will need another person's help. They head to a pub to recruit Joe, and since Joe is unsatisfied with his current job, he agrees to help them, and all three of them go to the theater and start digging. The days pass by, and while Henry has to practice for the upcoming play, Joe and Max continue digging the tunnel. One day, Frank shows up and tells them that he has seen them lurking around the bank a lot these days. The three try to come up with an excuse, but Frank tells them that he knows they want to rob the bank, and he also wants to be a part of it. He will act as an informant and tell them details about the bank. The reason why Frank wants to join them is that the bank denied his request when he tried to take a loan to pay for the hospital bills for his dying wife. The trio feels bad for Frank, and they accept him as a part of their group. Frank then tells them that soon, the bank will have currency exchange and millions of dollars will be in the vault that day. The next day, Joe gets drunk and tells Eddie about their plan. Eddie wants to be a part of their group as well now, but he says he will not help them with digging. Henry and Max are annoyed by this, but they have no choice but to accept. In the next scene, they are in the theater where the director yells at Julie as he is unsatisfied with her acting. This makes Julie upset, and she runs to her room to cry. Henry follows her and tries to comfort her, but he ends up making her even more upset after he tells her that he will be leaving on the opening night of the play. Since Henry is the male lead of the play, the show won't be able to go on without him. Julie realizes this and gets very angry at him and tells him to leave her alone. Later, Henry tells Max that he will perform in the play on the opening night, but he will also help them rob the bank during the intermission. The big day finally arrives, and it's time to rob the bank. Henry helps them during his breaks while also acting in the play. Eddie is the only one who knows how to break into the vault, so he uses the required tools to make a hole in it, and they are now able to enter the vault. They quickly collect all the cash and get out of the tunnel. This is when Eddie pulls out his gun and threatens them. He orders Joe to put all the money in the car, but Max takes action and beats Eddie up, causing him to fall to the ground. They'll leave Eddie in the vault and go to the car to escape. But suddenly, Henry tells Max to stop the car because he has realized that he loves Julie a lot, and so he runs back to the theater and confesses his love for her on stage. He then tells her to meet him in Moscow and bids her farewell with a kiss. Thanks for watching. To support the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button and press the bell icon to get new video updates.